This is the story of three boys who might have been in your school, perhaps even in your grade, even your friends. And what happened to them might have happened to you. You see, they had a plan to do something, but they didn't stop to think what the consequences of that plan might be. And now they're in trouble, real trouble. Jimmy is just plain scared.
Golly, what do you suppose is going to happen to us now?
They'll probably kick us out of school activities for a month, but I don't care if they do.
This is sure gonna hurt my mother and dad.
What are you always worrying about your mother and dad for? They aren't going to hear anything about this.
Gee, but they might even kick us out of school. I'd hate to face my folks if they did that.
Golly, if I had it to do over, I'd sure do it different.
Another chance? Do you really think you deserve another chance? You planned this, Frank. It was all your idea. What do you think about your fine idea now? And you, Jimmy, how do you feel? Although you didn't plan it, you really didn't give any thought to how it might turn out, did you? To you, it just seemed fun and a good idea at the time, but you did join in. But Dale, now, you could have stopped it. You knew it was wrong, and you knew where it had a good chance of leading. Then why did you do it?
I knew it was wrong. I knew we shouldn't do it, and I tried to tell them. But they said I was just a chicken, and after all, they're my friends. And sometimes you have to do some things for friends that you don't like to do.
Why did you do it, Jimmy?
Well, Frank said he wanted to do it. He said it sure would be funny. And he was right. It was awful funny for a while. It isn't any fun now, though.
How about you, Frank? What do you have to say?
As far as I'm concerned, you can thank old man Kraft. He deserves something, making me stay in because he caught me throwing paper wads. I wasn't the only one. Made me miss the ball game, too. But I got even with him, and I still don't care.
You don't care, Frank? Well, at least you didn't care what happened to Mr. Kraft that day he kept you in after school. In fact, you thought of lots worse things to do to him than the plan you suggested to Jimmy and Dale. Remember how you planned it, you and Jimmy? It wasn't hard to convince him. He thought it would be a whale of a good joke on Mr. Kraft. And remember how Dale hung back and didn't think it was such a good idea, but how you and Jimmy persuaded him? And how he came along with you just because he was your friend? And remember how you went to the drugstore and bought the stuff? And then you went down in Jimmy's basement and you tried just a little bit of it, just to see how it smelled.
Boy, howdy, doesn't that stink?
Boy, it sure does. That stuff will work fine. I can hardly wait to see old Kraft's face.
Golly, do you think we ought to? That stuff's awful. What if it hurts something?
What do we care? What's the matter? You gonna chicken on us?
Yeah, you going chicken?
Well, no, I just thought that... Okay, let's do it.
And do you remember the next day, how you three waited through that class, waiting for the end of the period? Remember how the closer it came to the time, the harder it was to keep your eyes off that waste paper basket where you had decided to play your trick? Remember how you felt then? Remember, Frank?
Boy, it won't be long now. This old school's really going to see something. Sure will stink things up around here. This'll get even with old Kraft, all right. Sure will be funny. I wonder if Dale's right, though. I wonder if we might hurt something. I wonder if that stuff might blow up. No, we tried it. Maybe it'd be better if we didn't do it today. Maybe we ought to wait a little bit. Nope, can't do that. Jimmy and Dale would think I was scared if I backed out now. I'll just have to go through with it.
Remember how you felt that day, Jimmy?
I can hardly wait till Frank gets that stuff going. I'll bet this old room's gonna smell worse than it ever smelled before. Frank's always thinking up things to do. Wonder why I never have any good ideas. Yes, sir, that sure is going to be funny when old man Kraft gets a whiff of that stuff.
And Dale, remember what you were thinking?
We shouldn't do it. We just shouldn't. I know I was right. Something might happen. Might even start a fire. Somebody might get hurt. And it would be all my fault. I should have stopped it. I should have made Frank give up the idea. I wonder if I could stop it now. I could go tell Mr. Kraft, but I'd have to do it before class was over, and everybody'd see me. And I'd get Jimmy and Frank into trouble. They wouldn't like me anymore. No one would like me because I tattled. No, I guess there's nothing I can do about it now.
If each of you had stopped to think, you would have given the whole thing up. But you didn't. You waited until Mr. Kraft dismissed class. Then you quickly put the sack of chemicals into the waste paper basket. It worked, just the way you thought it would. Except you used much more of the stuff this time than when you tried it out in Jimmy's basement. No wonder everyone thought the school was on fire. No wonder the whole thing still seems almost like a nightmare to you, even now. Yes, the chemicals worked all right, but not quite the way you thought they would. The school fire bell broke up the important dress rehearsal for the class play. You hadn't counted on that. The city fire department was called out. You hadn't counted on that either. And the fumes, so bad they made some of your classmates sick. You hadn't counted on the fumes at all. Classes in part of the school had to be let out because of the fumes. You know how you felt then, but it was too late. The damage was done. Sure, it was exciting for a little while, but the results of your little prank, well, let's see. The classroom was so badly damaged that it has to be completely redecorated. Painting costs money. And since classes had to be dismissed, time was lost, time which had to be made up. Not only by you, but by all your classmates. But most of all, there was the feeling you had when you saw the damage you had done. The feeling that changed from fun to fear, and finally to shame. And then there were the eyes that saw you come out of the classroom, running away from what you had done. There were the lips that told of what the eyes had seen. And there were the ears that heard. Then there were the looks and the thoughts of your classmates when they learned that you were to blame for all this. And finally, there was the note that brought you to the principal's office.
For God's sakes, Dale, why don't you quit worrying about it?
Sure, we might as well face it.
Oh, we're not the only ones. What about those guys drawing pictures in the washroom? What about the time when all those kids broke the windows?
Sure, and the carved up desks in Miss Smith's room, and the library books that were marked up last week. We're not the only ones who've done stuff around here.
Gee whiz, you don't think that excuses us, do you? There's no getting around it. What we did was wrong, and we all know it now.
All right, boys. Come in, please.
Well, Frank, Jimmy, Dale, what do you think about it now? And what about you? You who have watched this film. If you had been in this situation at the beginning, would you have stopped to think about the damage you might cause to other people's property? What do you think was the real reason Frank acted as he did? What would you have done if you had been Jimmy? Do you think Dale would have preferred not to join Frank and Jimmy? Why? What do you think?